Yeah, so I haven't been involved in so many startups as Pekka from Rundit, but I've been a bit more lucky. I've been involved in 3. All of them are successful and some have been making money. But perhaps it means I haven't taken enough risk. That could be the thing as well. So today I just wanted to share some of the stories from the startups and from the companies I've been involved with. And I'm hoping we have some founders in the room. Do we have some founders in the room? Yay, we do have some founders in the room. So may you not make the mistakes we did and learn from those. So that's kind of the theme of the story. First of all, I would like to quickly talk you through the story of Monese. Some of you might know Monese, some not. It's probably, well, not probably, it's definitely the runner-up for the 5th position of a unicorn from Estonia. There's 2 of them. One is PipePrime, the other one is Monese. I surely hope that we both make it to the unicorn level soon enough. But yeah, so I'll quickly talk you through the story of Monese. What's it for, what's the product, and how it scaled to where we are today. And then after that, I will share a few ideas of my own based on the experience so far. And if we make it through on time, we might even have time for some questions. All right, it's cool. So the story of Monese is based on the idea that we are more and more living in a borderless world. Although many people don't want to admit that, Mr. Trump is trying to build a wall between his country and Mexico. There's a lot of backlash also in Europe from ultra-right and ultra-left. But the fact is the world is becoming more borderless and people move around a lot more than they ever have before. I think also if you look around this room, you can see probably, I don't know, maybe not half of United Nations, but quite a good mix of people from different countries. But businesses are very much still local, and some businesses are more local than others. And one of those businesses is banking, right? So banking traditionally has been super local, and I think anyone who has tried to open a bank account in a foreign country can tell you that. It's not so easy. We in Estonia or in Latvia, we think there's no problem, everything works fine. You have your internet bank, you have your mobile bank, everything is super easy. But please, let's do an experiment. Let's take a Bangladeshi person, send them to Citadele Bank. Let's see what they come out with. My bet is not going to work out too well, right? And the reason for that is two reasons actually. In banking, because everything is super local and the banks have to know their customers, do their KYC and due diligence, they are dipping into local data sources, right? They don't know people from another country. Their systems don't work that way. So that's one obstacle. The other obstacle is, of course, that the primary business of banks is lending money. So credit cards, leasing, mortgages, any kind of loans. So in order to give a loan, they want to check the creditworthiness, and it's very hard to check the creditworthiness of someone who has moved into that country 2 weeks ago, right? So this is the business model. This is what has made opening bank accounts for foreigners a bit difficult until now. So that's what Monese aims to solve, is to help those people on the move. Either if they are temporarily in a new country or more permanently in a new country, you can open a bank account in 2 or 3 minutes using just your mobile phone, and it works just the same as your high street bank account would work. Quite a few people have signed up in the last few years. We are on the route of getting to 1 million signups probably in about 3 months' time, I think. Current run rate is about 65,000 new signups every month. So it's been fairly successful as a startup, as a business. Just wanted to quickly talk you through the founding story and the scaling story. So the idea is dated back to 2013. Our founder, Norris, he was an expat himself. He was a successful businessman in Estonia. He then moved over to London and suddenly realized that he has become a third-rate citizen. Nobody wants to open a bank account. Nobody wants to give him a credit card. Nobody wants to give him any kind of time of day, basically, in the financial institutions. So when he was in between ventures, sitting in a beach here in Miami, he thought that, this doesn't have to be so hard. We have mobile phones. We have internet connectivity everywhere. You should be able to create a more mobile and more encompassing experience for everyone. So the early team was about 4 people. I was not one of them, so there was other 4 people. And what made this story a little bit unique, I'm sorry for the Estonian interest here, but basically it's not very common in the Baltic countries to raise funds before you have a product, right? In the Silicon Valley, if you are a serial entrepreneur and you have done 10 different companies and sold them all off, you can walk into the venture capitalist offices and raise money based on a PowerPoint deck. That's not the common thing in the Baltics. So perhaps, I'm not sure if it was the one and only, but it's definitely one of the few stories where Monese was able to raise 1.6 million euros before having any kind of product. So it was purely sketches and ideas, and the story basically was so compelling. And most of the investments was also coming from actual Estonian seed investors. And one of them, Baltic, did a very interesting thing. So they promised us 300,000, but with a catch. So you get 300,000, but you have to get another 300,000 from other investors, then you get it. So it was a pretty clever thing from their end, of course, because it would show to them that these people can sell, right? These people can sell not only to this investor, but also to other investors. So Norris came actually here to TechChill, and he was literally woozing every investor in the room. And he did pull it off. So we started off with a 1.6 million investment. And then could raise a little bit bigger team with that money. And 2015, Monese launched its first product. At the time, Monese had 11 employees, and the product was, well, the product looked beautiful, of course, as you can imagine. So it was an Android app, and you could use that app to open a bank account and order yourself a Visa debit card. Get your salary paid into that account, use it as you would use your normal bank account. So just want to pause here. So there was a team of 11 people. The investment round was 1.6 million, and we put on the market a product which was competing against banks that are 300 years old, have tens of thousands of employees, right? So this is truly disruptive situation. We didn't even have any real infrastructure costs because Amazon Web Services, God bless them, they gave us startup credit. So the first couple of years we were just running all our infrastructure in Amazon for free, and our total investment was the salaries and laptops of these 11 people to open a banking product on the UK market. Right, so if I was a bank, I would be pretty terrified. Then going forward, so then the team was growing a bit, and I will skip a few steps here and then come to the post-Series B scaling up. So last year, we raised the 60 million Series B, already from institutional investors like PayPal Ventures from the US, Genevic from Sweden, AIG and Augmentum Capital from the UK. And with those funds, then we were able to increase the team in the last few months. I think we've been adding 30, 35 persons per month. So that's where we are right now. Yeah, and here's how the team looks like. If I talked about this room looking a little bit like United Nations, then our back office looks exactly like United Nations. I was running a team in Tallinn recently where we had, I think, 35 people in the team. 5 of them were from Estonia, and 2 were Estonians. So that's how it looks like. And of course, it really helps because also our customers are very international. Doesn't matter if they're in the home country or if they're foreigners in a new country. It really helps if your team, everybody understands the concept of diversity, and also it really helps if your people understand how hard it can be to move into a new country, right? So you have staff there that has done this experience themselves, so they are empathetic to the customer's problem when the customers are facing the same situation. Okay, then maybe going forward, so that we have a few time for questions as well. So some simple ideas for the next generation founders, all 10 of you in the room, or maybe 20, I hope. Just that you don't need to make the mistakes that me and some of my friends have done, so I bundled a few things together. So maybe first idea, stuff is harder than you think. Stuff is actually, creating a company, it doesn't matter if it's a startup or any kind of 0 to 1 experience, is actually a lot harder than you think, is a lot harder than anybody thinks. So you need to have a head like this guy, so you can really go through the wall. If you're from Estonia, you don't need a helmet. We are rather thick in the head. But if you're from another country, you need a helmet. And every startup story, every successful startup story, if you dig deep enough, there have been some through some horrendous shit, to be honest. So if you take, I don't know, Skype, for example, for Estonia, then they ran out of money and were not able to meet payroll a couple of times. They had telcos chasing them, trying to sue them and shut them down. And there was like very, very difficult times. So definitely be very sure that you want to go into that and be prepared that it is actually even harder than you think. So, because we only have a few minutes, I just wanted to maybe point you towards an interesting book on that topic, which is Hatching Twitter by Nick Bilton. So he tells the story about how Twitter got started, almost all the way to the modern age, and all the horrendous stuff that was going on in there, both politically, from the investors, between the founders themselves, the media, the tech trouble, all of it. It's a pretty scary story to read. So don't put it on your bed table. Read it during the day. Next idea, stuff takes longer than you think. And longer, I mean stuff takes a lot longer than you think. So this creating a startup or creating a new company, this is not your 100-meter sprint, 9 seconds and glory, right? This is more like, you know, the ski marathon of Tartu, which is south of Estonia, north of Latvia, basically, where you and your team, you will be in the forest for 60 kilometers, very long, very cold. You are thinking about quitting every kilometer, but you still kind of need to persevere and get it to the end. And of course, to get to the end, it would really help if you have passion for the thing you do. Otherwise, it's really hard to keep on going. And this kind of rags to riches, 2 years to exit kind of stuff, it's actually pretty rare. So if you think about, again, some of the better-known local startups that we have here, TransferWise just celebrated their 8th birthday. Kristo and Taavet are still both there. The idea in their head is actually a little bit older than that. My previous company, which I co-founded in 2003, most of the core team is still there. It's been 16 years. They're still going at it. Of course, it's already profitable and safe and all that, but still, it's a big part of your life. During that time, people get married, divorced, get children, get these children through school and all the way to the army, and you are still at the same idea, at the same company. So would really help if the idea that you have is something that you want to dedicate your next decade to. Again, a book idea as well. Angela Duckworth, Grit, is written all about it. Basically, she says, well, not just says, but proves that success is a combination of skill times effort. So it's not about talent as much, it's more about the effort and how to actually do it. All right, still have a few minutes. So third idea, it's a little bit controversial one. Do we have any investors in the room? Seed investors specifically, or angel investors? We don't have anybody. Okay, that's good. So don't forget about yourself. And the idea is such that you can't help others if you don't help yourself first, right? It's a very old concept. Everybody who has taken an airplane has seen this booklet basically saying, if you run out of oxygen, help yourself first and help others. And what I mean by that is very simple for startup founders to kind of not pay themselves anything, and that kind of is considered as a normal thing. You don't want to spend your runway on salary, that's expensive and all that kind of stuff. But you have to be at it for 10 years. So how can you do that, right? And it's very easy to kind of forget about paying yourself. My general advice would be like the time when you're able to pay your team a market salary, you should also get the market salary yourself. If for monetary reasons you can't pay yourself a market salary, or if because you are independently wealthy and have lots of savings, you don't need to pay yourself a market salary, in this case, at least establish what it is and agree with your investors that this will be your extra option package or extra share package or something like that. So you don't give your time away for free. There's no reason why you should give your time away for free. Right? It's all fine if you're a sole owner of the company. It doesn't matter if you take a salary or not. You can work 10 years without one. But the moment you have people who put in money but don't put in time, you need to kind of somehow equalize this. Right? What will happen is you get seed investors, and of course they don't want to see you spend your runway on your salary, but you have some sort of gentleman's agreement that this will be all compensated later on. Then you get another investor or a new representative of that investor, and these stories are all forgotten. Can guarantee you that. So look after yourself as well. And then, of course, looking after yourself means being able to negotiate. You really have to negotiate everywhere, all the time in your life. I mean, with your partners, with your employees, with your potential customers, with investors. So an excellent book on this topic is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Now, Chris is an ex-FBI hostage negotiator, And this book is really, really something completely different from your standard Harvard Business Review getting to yes kind of stuff. This is a real story. This is how you can really, and how you should really negotiate. As your life depends on it, as is the title of the book as well. Okay, good. Then coming to the fourth point is again a little bit controversial, specifically because we are in the Baltics. So some cultures, like Estonian culture, for example, and also Latvian culture to some extent, it's like we are shy and we are modest, and this is praised, isn't it so? You rather not brag about what you've done, or you rather not, put yourself in the front and center. And that makes very difficult proposition for a salesperson, right? So usually the levels of superlatives we use in the Baltic countries is like if everything is completely effed up, we say nothing special. If things are good, we say okay. And if things are excellent, we say pretty normal, right? So from this level of tonality, it's very hard to get an enthusiastic salespeople to go and influence people in the UK or people in the US to buy your product. Usually when we, Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian startups, when we talk about our products, like, yeah, it sort of works, we have a few issues to work out. Take the same product, put it in the hands of a Silicon Valley team, and they will tell you that it's the best thing since sliced bread, and do so very convincingly. So we have a bit of a handicap, to be honest, coming from these countries. So I guess my advice would be hire salespeople from a culture where bragging is normal, and then you get more active salespeople. A few countries come to mind. I'm not going to name them, but I think you know them just as well. Okay. And then for the more technical-minded founders, maybe this is a book you'd want to read about sales and specifically setting up a sales system for your B2B operation if your customers are businesses. This is by Aaron Ross. Aaron was the first ever inside sales, enterprise sales guy in Salesforce. So they started to build the enterprise sales team, and he was one of the first guys there. And he developed a system, a pretty good one, I have to say, a theoretical base, has published a book and a blog and whatnot, and it's fairly simple, fairly logical, easy to follow. I guess if you would add also some software to it, maybe Pipedrive, for example, so these two things in combination could set you off pretty well. Okay. Great. So as a conclusion, I guess I'd want to say that stuff is hard, takes long, and don't forget to feed yourself for the journey. And for the more technical-minded founders out there, someone mentioned on the stage before, I think it was a gentleman from Giraffe 360, that the CEO's job is to, 50% of their time is to spend on fundraising and selling to investors. I would have to say, if your company is consumer-oriented like ours is, it's more like 85% of the CEO time goes to selling to investors. So you better figure out your sales process. And if you as a founder are not too fond of this, then maybe you should get somebody into your team, some early partner in who is more fit to do this part of the work, because it is just as important as getting the product right. Doesn't really help if you have a great product and are not able to sell it. Okay. So I think we are catching up with time quite nicely, so we have a bit of time for Q&A.
Yes. Yeah, guys, so we have time for questions, and we're open. So, Lauri, there's right in front. Mikos.
Hey, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Do you hear me? Yes. So you showed extreme growth to the company, right? So what are the growth tactics that you would suggest? Tell about the growth tactics, please.
The growth what?
Growth tactics. Growth tactics.
Okay.
For startups. So what should we use to try to achieve the growth which is similar to yours?
Okay. So we're just getting started, actually. So we hope to be at about 450, 500 people by the end of the year, and at least 1 billion in valuation. So I guess the growth is really specific to every company and their strategy, and how they put their product together. What I can say from experience from last 3 companies is what really helps is if your product really solves a problem, right? An actual problem that people do have or that businesses do have. That's not an invented problem or some kind of a fairy tale idea that maybe you and your 2 brothers only have this problem, nobody else has that problem. So that would be an excellent start for growth. I guess we got actually, to be honest, we got outfunded by a few of our, shall we say, competitors. So perhaps we should have raised more money more early on. But then again, that was 2013, 14. So the situation was a bit different in terms of available funding. So I would also suggest, if you have a consumer-facing product, be ready to raise a lot of money because it is super expensive.
Because somebody out there is already buying the customers for quite expensive, so you have to compete with them.
No, it's crowded, right? So the marketplace is crowded,
right.
and it's very noisy. So if you have to outshout people for consumer attention, then that's really expensive stuff to do.
Yeah, it's getting more and more expensive to buy a customer.
Definitely.
All right, another question. I have a few, but I'm gonna
you have a few. All right,
I'm gonna ask you at the, one. How important do you think is the previous experience of founders for this kind of fast-growing and scalable company? Because obviously you mentioned the founder had past experience.
Yeah, actually, I have to say that's super important because I'm pretty sure we did not do quite many mistakes because of that. And it's not only the founder; it's quite a big part of the leadership team actually are like multiple entrepreneurs and have backgrounds to a number of companies before in different countries as well.
Would you recommend a young startup to consider bringing in an older, more experienced business person at an early stage?
Definitely as an advisor, but I guess it would be very hard to actually justify the expense at an early stage. But as an advisor, definitely.
Okay, yeah, so mentors, advisors
Yes.
at early stage.
Use the hell out of them.
Yes. Are you open for mentorship and advising?
I might be, if it's not a competing product.
Okay, so anybody, you can come up to Lauri. Any questions, guys? Come on, you have 2 more minutes.
1 minute.
Right there at the end, no? Going once, going twice? All right, so thank you, Lauri.
Thank you.
Big round of applause.